All right, well, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Town of Kensington, February 14th Town Council meeting. We're going to start the meeting off with a moment of silence. I just want to bring a couple of people up for thoughts and prayers. I want to lift up Mayor Kaki Chantry of Garrett Park. Her sister has been in hospice care, and I know she's not very well, so Kaki's been with her since she's been admitted into hospice care. I also want to lift up the family of Hyattsville. Mayor Kevin Ward passed away on January 25th. I didn't know Mayor Ward, but I had met him in passing at the Mayor's Association meeting. So definitely he was a young man, and I'm sorry to hear that he had passed away. And I also want to lift up County Council Member Will Jawando. Council Member Jawando was a victim of a very disgusting and offensive racial slur in a Zoom bombing. And I know he was pretty shaken by it, having heard him the next day on another council meeting. So I just want to lift him up as well. I think it's just horrible, the things that people do, I guess in the name of free speech. But anyway, so please think about him. Is there anyone else? Okay, if we can just bow our heads for a minute. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on, we need to have the approval of the minutes. Council, you received the minutes. I did not see any corrections, so if someone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from the Town Council meeting of January 10th, 2020.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the mayor and town council. Just number one is I'd like to acknowledge that the town provided the Kensington Volunteer Fire Department with a $4,000 grant to assist in the purchasings of new computers for their administrative staff. So we're very fortunate that we're able to put grant funds into our annual budget so that we can do these things for particularly our nonprofits here. And the Kensington Volunteer Fire Department has had a difficult time with some fundraising since the pandemic, and so they were in a jam. So glad we were able to help them. Number two, the town alcohol licensing. I think, who's here? Ron Price. I see Ron. Kathy Durbin there's Kathy. Kathy, do you want to just introduce the people that you have here tonight?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Durbin. I'm the Director of Alcohol Beverage Services. It's nice to see everyone and happy Valentine's Day. Ron Price is I think he made it on the phone. He was having problems with audio. And Ron Price is our regulatory manager and compliance manager for alcohol beverage services. So he's been working with Matt on this subject. And then our new ABS Licensing Regulation Education Division Chief, Amy Saman, is on as well. So I just want to introduce Amy. She's in her car, I think.
Hi. Great thing about Zoom. Yeah, we could be anywhere.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate you all coming out tonight to speak to us. You know, the reason we, had reached out is that we had reached our 8th license in the aggregate, I believe, of 7 licenses that are available to us. And we have learned that there is another business that would like to pull a license and is unable to because we've, reached that number. So I know Delegate Carr is working on a bill for us in order to increase that number, but we thought we'd have you here tonight to maybe we understand that the county has 32 different licenses, alcohol licenses, is that correct? And
That's
we right
correct.
now only have 8, I believe, that we allow. So I don't know how fast we can turn around another bill, but I think we're probably going to have to visit this again, next year.
So yeah, some of these licenses are like, it's really funny how even the Class D beer and wine off-premise license years ago was considered a saloon license and only a few people had it. Now we have over 200 Class D licenses in Montgomery County because they allow for the beer tastings, the craft beer. It's, it's just a more interactive, engaging license for a small business. And so they've become very prevalent in the county. So it's weird. Every time I think we're going to get rid of one of the licenses, or maybe we have too many, people say, I want to do something special. So we have like 3 different types of performing arts licenses for the various different sizes of communities, like the Fillmore size down to the Alney size as well. And the Viz Arts has a license that now 4 different organizations have applied for, including BlackRock. So it's exciting, but we just had a bike shop apply the other day, believe it or not, for a license. So, the board liked their ideas, and they're little kind of nuanced licenses. So when we say we have that many licenses, a lot of them are just kind of small, really kind of intimate licenses that people want to get, like we have an art walk license, those kinds of things. Our latest license, just to let you know, we thought it was really, it's pretty exciting actually. Pre-COVID, we created a marketplace license, and I'm not sure I even had a chance to tell you all about this license, but it seemed really super sexy at the time. And then COVID hit and everybody could carry around alcohol everywhere. So now it's, creating those spaces, safe spaces for consumption only. So like a developer can apply if they'd like for a downtown center, or the Bethesda Urban Partnership. We're kind of tweaking it a little bit this year for them because they want a streetery. They want to keep their model. And if they can continue to close off that street, it's an annual license and it's consumption only. So the businesses within that parameter can sell food and alcohol, and people can go out to the tables and partake. So it's more of a consumption only license. We modeled it after a license in Virginia, and then they liked what we did and they changed theirs and upgraded theirs. So it's really an exciting thing to watch the businesses thrive and the communities change a little bit, but to be able to create those licenses that work for a while, you don't have to keep going back and changing them. So hopefully this is the last change for Marketplace, but I think it's going to be a fun addition to Montgomery County. So, but I'm happy to talk to you about it anytime.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is my concern, is that, as you add licenses, what business opportunity are we missing? And, somebody, I mean, I know when a distillery looked at coming into the town, we didn't have a license for that, and no one had thought about, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
And we've created a lot of opportunity for distilleries, breweries, and even the urban type wineries to be able to partner with local licenses, which never happened before. And that's happened over the last few years. I like the ability to do that. So then these businesses don't only have statewide licenses, they have local licenses as well. So they're part of our community. It's not so detached that it's just a statewide license. They come in and do whatever they want. And then we don't have any real relationship with those businesses. So it's worked out beautifully. And I think we have 6 or 7 different types of licenses that can accompany the manufacturer licenses now.
okay. Council, do you have any questions?
Somebody has a question.
No questions?
I guess if no one's going to come in, I guess I'll just start. And I'm wondering if we can, given what you just asked about, Tracy, and just that we may be missing some opportunities with these new licenses, but knowing that we have demand for it now, does it make sense that we just we advocate or support passing Delegate Carr's legislation, and then come back and amend it next year to open up the classes as we do a little bit more analysis with you. It seems like it's pretty urgent if it's going to get considered. So I'm just wondering if that's the right path, or do you recommend we wait and then know what we really want and push for it next year? I worry that we'll miss a whole year of businesses having this if they want it.
Right. And I understand that, but I'm a little, where time is kind of pressing us right now regarding, making sure that we can get this passed this year. I think our Delegate Carr was going to be on the call, but he hasn't called in yet. It would be nice to know, what kind of, because we need to do it publicly, to sit there and say, oh, we're going to adopt all these licenses, or, oh, we're going to just go under the county and not even have, special licenses for the town. I'd be a little concerned about doing that without more proper public input.
Right. I was
So-
actually suggesting that we have, that we just move forward with what's already been approved by.
Just
the
going
town.
up to the 20.
Yeah, up to the 20 under the same classes that we've already approved.
Okay.
And then,
Okay, I misunderstood that.
oh no, sorry, I wasn't clear. And then amending it next year, asking for an amendment to the bill next year, maybe, or the legislation, to open it up to more as we do more research, if we want to do a streetscape or whatever, a streetery, excuse me.
Right. Council, any other thoughts? Connor, Darren, Bridget?
No, I guess just as a reminder, Kathy, so there are all of these classes of licenses, but there are also additionally like add-ons, like permits that can be added on to certain ones. So
Yes.
can you just remind us of how that works? Because there's, the beer tastings permits and, just want to be reminded.
Yeah, so there's the different permits. Some of them have changed a little bit this year due to COVID, so we changed our processes. But for the most part, if that license, there have been people that have come before the board and they've, for instance, there was somebody that did oppose the license, for instance, something like that happened. So they applied for a limited license and they cannot have the add-ons. Doesn't have, I've only known that once to happen, but for the most part, the add-ons are, so if there's a special event that's going on and they want to extend their license out and they have approval of all the entities that need to approve, DEP or whoever it might be, to extend that license out for a special event, they can just use their license to extend it instead of bringing in a one-day license holder. And that would extend their property, which is for us better in a way because they already have been trained and they already know the alcohol laws and they understand what they can and can't do. So that's an example of one of the things. And then also the carry out by the drink is a special permit right now for the beer, wine and liquor on premise restaurants that will, it's sunset till 2023. And that's as a result of the COVID. So people can, or customer can order food and a drink or a bottle of beer closed in a container, those kind of things. So they're approved administratively, but they're approved during the license as well, during the Board of License Commissioners hearing. So there's lots of them. We can actually have a summer session or do whatever you all want. I'm happy to field a lot of questions. And in the meantime, I'll send you the link so that you can see the breakout, just to get a big picture, but happy to go down deep with you and talk about what some of the businesses can do and how they're still limited.
We don't have any restrictions on how many one-day licenses though that are available, right? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Because I know we pull a few of those every year.
So we've given the businesses a little bit more flexibility, especially because of COVID and due to COVID, to if their landlord permits to go a little further out, like on occasional Saturdays, or if there's going to be an event that happens and they get all the permissions they need to get. And all of those permissions that you're talking about, or that we've discussed, they're usually temporary. So they just approve for that day. Yeah.
Okay. Are they still allowing off sales for drinks because of COVID? I mean, can you still go to a restaurant and get a carry out? Okay.
Yeah. We approved that permit online. So we have, I think, at this point, 170 businesses. There were 400 businesses during COVID that had applied for this. And it's free. It's just, we want to know who's doing it and talk to them about it. A lot of the businesses that are, that remain doing it, they're approved. They don't necessarily sell drinks to go with their food, because the winners really are margaritas and those
Right.
types of packaged drinks, not a rum and Coke to go. People really weren't interested. And now there's the open container laws that are in fact, so you can't rock out with your rum and Coke and walk down the street
Right.
with it, or, you know, get in a car and drive. We don't want any of those things to happen. But there are bottles of wine sold with 2 dinners, for instance, is quite popular, those kind of things.
Mm.
So the winners are really the closed containers or manufactured sealed containers, or like margaritas in a sealed container.
Okay. Okay. Al, I'm glad to see you here. We're talking about the bill that you've passed, and sticking with you know, what we discussed, which was the 20 licenses, and then having Kathy come back this summer and looking at going back maybe one more time to to look at the other licenses that we do not allow, or, you know, possibly just going with the county law. So and not having to do this every other year. So, but that's to be determined. Council, I just want to make sure. So Delegate Carr knows that we're going to stick with the bill that he had forwarded us today. Is that correct? Which just takes the aggregate from 8 to 20. Again, don't all speak up at once.
Yeah, no,
I guess
in the time that would be what I would do, but I agree with possibly revisiting the you know, even greater liberalization next year.
Yeah, I do feel like that somebody's going to come up to us and want to do some great idea, and we'll have to sit there and say, sorry, we don't do that license. And so I don't want to miss out on something that's good for our, you know, our residents, or, you know, or is exciting for our residents, and, you know, good for a business to, okay.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, good evening, Mayor Furman. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, sorry I missed the first part of the conversation, but I just wanted to just set expectations for the bill, because as you know, these things are very time sensitive in the General Assembly. And if this bill had come back from drafting like last Thursday, we would have been in much better shape than we are now, because the bill came back today. We're in a really tight spot because there is Alcohol Day. That's the day when all the alcohol bills get heard, which is coming up on this Monday. And because this is a late filed local bill, we still have the delegation has to vote to approve it as late filed, and then we would still have to have a bill hearing, and that all would normally happen before Alcohol Day, and it gets referred to the Economic Matters Committee. So I am not sure if the timing is going to work for this session, but I haven't given up on that. But I just wanted to let you know that the timing is not looking that great, but we'll be even better prepared next year in case it comes to that.
Okay. Well, I was talking to the owner of Los Choros, who is friends with the restaurant that was looking to get the ninth license, which we can't offer. And he was certainly hoping that we would be able to get that done this year, if possible. So, do what you can. I know it's, I think most of the stuff's done on Zoom. I don't know if it makes it easier, or I know I was you asked me to be on a bill or to attend a meeting for a bill, and it was, I think, a 30-second meeting. So everybody's here, everybody voted, and everybody left. So I think, hopefully something like that could happen.
Hopefully. So definitely in theory, it could work that way, but I will certainly do my best.
Okay.
Well, Al, is there anybody we can be reaching out to additionally, as the mayor and council to try and, make sure they're fully educated on why we want this and apologize for why it's a late bill, kind of go through it and help maybe make this go efficiently and happen
Sure.
this cycle?
Yeah, thank you for that great question. So I don't think there's really anything you can do. I don't know, Kathy or Amy might have some insights into this as well, but it's, I think it just kind of boils down to a timing thing. So, I have to talk with my colleagues to see if there's some way we can pull a rabbit out of the hat and make it happen. But yeah, I don't think there's an issue with, the merits of the bill or anything like that. It just simply boils down to the timing.
Okay. Well,
And just out of curiosity, has this ever been done out of order where alcohol day happens first and then come back and check these boxes later? Is it required that it happen?
You never want to say never. There's just a lot more hoops that have to be jumped through because, I didn't mention it also, Bill has to also go through this other committee called the Rules Committee to get approved before it can go to the Economic Matters Committee that has the alcohol day. So, it's not impossible, but it's just, becomes very difficult.
So if it does not make it into alcohol day, is there still a process or opportunity to get it done this legislative session?
I will try my best. It is, possibly going to be an uphill battle, but it's, I'm not going to say it's impossible.
This is probably one of the easier bills that doesn't take a lot of thought.
It is a very simple bill. So.
Yeah, you're going from 8 to 20. It means more money for the state, more money for the county, more money for the town, economic development.
Yeah.
I mean,
so,
I understand the system. I do understand the system, Al. It's just more of this is the concern of citizens with government is sometimes we just can't deal with something that should be easy. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I agree.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Kathy, we may be back next summer for increasing the aggregate if Al's not being able to pull the rabbits out of the hat, but I'm going to hope that he can. Anyway,
well, whatever we can do to support, we will. And
okay.
If nothing else, we'll definitely meet in the summer and talk about options and some of the things that you want to see in Kensington. I think that you'll still be a part of the process. It's great. We have a really great board of license commissioners that wants to hear input from the community whenever a person comes up to apply for a license and be qualified. So it's a great process and would love you to be more a part of it. And I would miss you all though if I didn't come back every year. So
well, we would miss you as well, but I do feel like we've got, I think, our first past alcohol in 2007, which is we're coming up on the 15-year mark, and I think we should have this by now and not have to keep going back. So
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
no problem.
Does anybody outside the council have any questions? I don't want to about what we're trying to do. Okay, I don't see any hands. So Kathy, thank you, and Ron and Amy for coming tonight, and Al, thank you for coming in and letting us, giving us the update.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move down to number 3, which is the 10311 Summit Avenue hearing. It's a variance hearing. Council, you received information on the variance from the staff today. So Matt, do you want to start?
I believe Christy's here and Kevin, they are. Okay.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
we have a variance request on behalf of Christy and Kevin Jones of 10311 Summit Avenue for an addition on the south side of the property. There's actually 2 variances. One is to encroach 3 feet into the 10-foot side yard setback, and the other is the proposed addition would be nearer than 15 feet to the existing dwelling at 4011 Prospect Street. Christy and Kevin, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone for including us on the agenda today. This is a unique situation for us because we do have what we consider a narrow lot, roughly 50 feet wide, and it's, you know, a rhombus shape, and so it just kind of creates this unique challenge where we would like to add some width to our house in a very tasteful way. But the way our house is shaped, it just allows us to go just a short amount of feet wider in the front, as you can see with the plan. And that, I'm just assuming that everybody can see the plan or has a copy of the plan. And then in the back, we can go out a little bit further. And the gap that you see there is because we have an air conditioning unit and gas meter there, which would be a heavy lift to move around. But in the front of the house, we want to put some office space. We're both, even post-COVID, going to be working remotely and want to create that space. And then in the back is to create space for my parents who will likely be staying with us or moving in at some point. Part of why we are asking for this variance is, number one, it's within Montgomery County guidelines that we were grandfathered into, you know, in 1954. So it's not certainly violating anything there, but certainly it's not within town guidelines at the moment. Beyond that, we've looked into an accessory unit to put in the back of the house, which in talking to a contractor, that seemed like it'd be more of an eyesore for our neighbors and seemed a little bit obnoxious. And again, what we're proposing here, again, is tasteful, similar to the driveway that we put in last year. And we think that it's not asking for too much, but again, we know it's not within guidelines, you know, of the council, and our neighbors that border us, and who would, including the next door neighbors who would be most impacted by this, are very supportive of our proposed plan. Have I missed anything here?
No, I do have a question. Matt, you said there was a second variance for 15 feet within our neighbor's house. Are you sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure they're 10 feet off the property line.
Correct. So
it would be 17 feet.
Our zoning map currently has the property at between 21 and 22 feet, 4011 Prospect Street from the lot, from your dwelling unit. And the proposed variance would bring that to 12 to 13 feet.
So that doesn't square with what I think, but okay. Then they must be like significantly close to the property line, then more closer than the 10 feet.
Yeah, and then part of this is also just for anyone on the call who doesn't know, like, we're one of the houses, like one of the few houses that is on the main road of Summit Avenue leading up to Knowles, and you know, so it's in line with the houses across the street from us, in terms of the width, and we're one of the skinnier lots along with a few others that are rhombus shaped, along Summit Avenue. So hoping to add to the aesthetics and to the curb appeal on Summit Avenue as well.
And you said that the resident on Prospect doesn't object, is that correct? Was there a letter?
They do not. They're actually newer neighbors in that blue
Right.
house right on the corner. And so we've had conversations with them, and they're very supportive. because that whole, it's kind of a side yard where, again, you have the air conditioned unit, a gas meter. It's not really being used, with the exception of a failed garden, I guess, that we put there during COVID. But there's certainly space there. And again, I feel like they'd be more impacted if we were to put some accessory unit in the back of the house, which would, again, just not align well with what I would imagine they would like. And it's something that we could do within guidelines.
So you don't think taking these two additions on the side and putting them in the back, you think that is worse? Is that correct for the neighbor?
Just in terms of having an accessory unit, which again, we could go a lot larger. We don't need something crazy or anything like that. Just enough space where we could put in an extra room and a bathroom that's handicap accessible in the back there is really what we're looking for, which is why we would just like, to go out just, about 3 extra feet back there is what we're asking.
Like there's incentive for us to build back because it's farther away from the road and the noise. But if you look at our house, it looks like super long and skinny when you're driving up. So it just looks awkward to us. And we feel like the additional width on the front would actually make it look like, just better, I guess would be the word.
And these are 1-story additions, is that correct?
Right now, the 1-story, certainly if there's flexibility to go up, we would do that, but that's not what we've talked to the contractor about it. But I don't know how that works with the variance, if we should be having that discussion now or just focusing on one level.
Matt, I think if they decided to go 2, if the variance was granted, that wouldn't make a difference. Is that correct?
No, because the variance request is for the footprint of the foundation,
not the
essentially.
height.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I would think, especially for the front one, we'd want to go 2, just so it made the house consistent.
A little bit more balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Council, do you have any questions?
I don't know how to shape my question yet. I will say this much. I can sympathize. I have a fairly long house at the due to historic preservation in the county. Also Charles was looking at whether or not this meets the 3 tests for a variance. One of which is that it's not detrimental to a neighboring property or the community as a whole. And I know you guys have stated it, and I absolutely take your word for it. But I would feel uncomfortable doing so without actually a letter from the neighbor, because what happens if that's not the case, right? And then the new neighbor comes in and says, I don't know what they were talking about. Like,
Sure.
we absolutely don't want that. So first and foremost, I'd be uncomfortable passing a variance without letters from your neighbors that are nearby that this would impact. And if you guys are thinking about doing 2nd story, I'd talk with your neighbors about that too, right? It just makes for better neighbors. The other one, one of the other variance tests is that the minimum necessary amount to overcome the condition. I don't really, it sounds like a home office and maybe a bedroom, but Matt, so this is 3 feet into the side yard setback?
Correct. Yeah. So the
look.
front addition is would be a variance of 3 feet. We just went with 3 feet, even though the rear is proposed at 2.
Yep.
We're classifying it as 1 addition as opposed to 2 separate additions on the south side of the lot.
Okay. I'm looking at it now. So the other thing I'm looking at right now is MC Atlas. If you guys haven't been on it, aren't familiar with it, it's just the county's lot lines, right? And how things are situated. And I will say one thing that is not any fault of your own, nor necessarily your neighbors, is the fact that your neighbor's property seems to be sitting about 1 foot off the property line, the legal boundary. If you look at MC Atlas. So that the one part of the code that talks about the spacing in between two properties, that's not your doing. I mean, somebody's in these houses, I think their house is like 1906 and your house is like 1903. So this happened a long time ago. But that house, the 4011 Prospect, it is situated in the top left corner of a probably 10,000 square foot lot. But that top left corner is 1 or 2 feet from your property line as well. So here's what I would say. If we, voting tonight without letters from your neighbor, I would vote against it. If you come back, and this is the frustrating part of government, because now you got to come back to another meeting, right? But out of respect for the other neighbors, I'd like to make sure that they are okay with it, just to get over that third question. That's it. I'll pause the rest of my comments, see if anybody else has something.
I'll just come in. I think I would side with Connor on this, and that would be my discomfort with voting on this. If there's no letter, no one here, I believe a neighbor of yours representative, unless they are, it'd be great to hear from them. But in all of these variance hearings that we've had before, there's always been the neighbor having submitted a letter or being there in support. So I would just echo Connor's discomfort. But if and when you go back to the neighbor, if this doesn't pass, and you consult with them, I would just recommend asking them about the ADU too. Is that something, if that was an alternative that they would support, or, if you end up having to go that route, probably good to have that conversation as well, if that's what you ultimately have to do.
Sure. And to do that, Nate, would we have to get their support? I mean, obviously to be neighborly, we would want to, but if we don't really have a choice, is that something we would need to get their support on? It's within the guidelines of Montgomery County and the town.
So I don't think it's a requirement to get a letter from the neighbor, but for me to support a variance to the exception, I would need to see that the neighbors support it.
Sure, for the accessory unit though, you were mentioning.
Oh, for the accessory unit?
Yeah, like I don't think that we.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's within
guidelines.
Although it would be the neighborly thing to do, to make sure that they understood what we were doing. I don't know that we would need for them to.
No, I don't think you would need it, but you may find out they
No.
prefer that. You might find out they prefer an ADU over, building right next to the house, right?
Sure, sure.
I just don't know if we had that conversation. Yeah.
So just Matt, I've been out there with a tape measure before. I'm pretty sure there's 26 feet between their house and ours currently. So I can check that again when it's light out and not freezing cold.
Okay.
To be sure.
Yeah, our zoning map, I mean, obviously it's not a building location survey, but it's showing 21 to 22 feet. So that's what we have to go by until we're provided a building location survey. So we're still looking at 2 variances, and
Okay,
that's how we set it up.
but okay, just from the comments we've received so far, we're pretty confident we could get a letter from them. So should we just table this and then come back in March, or do we have to reapply?
You don't have to reapply I don't think, for the variance. But yeah, I think getting a letter and then coming back in March would be helpful.
Okay.
Any other council members that we should hear from first?
Bridget, Darren, did you want to provide any feedback?
I'll start, and I don't want to lead you down a primrose path regarding the approval by the neighbor, meaning that would not necessarily mean that I would support this. When I look at the code, it talks about an irregular shaped lot, topography, and things like that. And my lot is 50 feet wide. It's 150 feet deep. Every lot on Farragut Avenue is that width and depth. And so I know that there are certainly different size lots throughout town, some bigger, some smaller. But at first blush, I don't see the basis for this variance based on irregular shape or topography.
Well, Darren, I can quickly elaborate on that. So our lot is 50 feet wide, but it's 168 long on one side and 165 on the other. It's not a rectangle. It's canted. Actually, I forget which way, but it's, and every lot on Summit has that. The rest of the town of Kensington, you guys have perfect rectangles. And that angling of the lots on Summit means that our houses can't be as wide within the existing guidelines.
Well, and I hear that. I just, you know, what I have are two kind of back of the envelope sketches of the proposed addition. Our code allows you, I see that you go at the back of your house within 10 feet and 18 feet. And actually those are perfectly, those comply with our existing side yard setbacks. If you were narrower, if you were 8 or 7 feet, our code allows you to continue that intrusion with a 650-foot addition off the back of the house. When we went from the county 7 or 8 feet side yard setbacks to 10 feet, it was for the idea of open space between houses. And the addition that you're proposing, particularly because it's in the front of the house, at least gives the appearance of less space between the houses than our code requires. And so I look at that and I say, well, okay, let's look at the variance procedure requirements and, you know, which boxes do we check? I hear your point about it's a rhombus or whatever that shape is from geometry, but it's basically a rectangle to me. And so I don't think we get out of the variance process by saying that it's a difference of, you know, 3 feet on 160 feet length. So I'm not saying I wouldn't support it if you came back with your neighbor supporting it, but I don't know that would be enough for me. And I'm only one of 4, but I want to make sure we don't lead you to give you false assurances.
We appreciate that. Thanks, Darren.
Can my mute? Okay. Tracy helped set this up with some questions, but the rear, I get it. Outside of just having a really long house, because after a while you get used to it. What about because you guys have a significant amount of rear yard space. What about going backwards and doing your additions off the rear? Why are you, what's keeping you from looking at plans like that?
A part of it's just the aesthetics of just giving the house a little bit of width, which again aligns with our neighbors across the street, which again I know aren't part of the town, so that's one part of it. And just space that's not being used on the side yard are the people that lived here before. I'm not even sure if they ever lived here. I mean, there's big concrete, almost like helicopter pad looking concrete that's out there right now. And so that is a place where, you know, our kids play and things happen. So that's part of it, certainly. So we could. So again, we thought about putting an accessory unit back there. It's just when looking at that, you know, it takes up, you know, a lot of the yard space. And again, we were just looking to you know, extend on the side to give our house some width and curb appeal, especially in the front. And then beyond that, you know, use space that's not being used. And I think that if we went to the back, it would start to get a little bit more obnoxious, in my opinion, from what I saw with the contractor and what we talked about.
And just because it's not covered here at all, but that side of the house is just a giant long hallway that runs from the front door to the back door. So anything that we were to build off of it, like, needs to be wide enough to be its own space, because you can't really steal from a hallway that you need to walk through. So like perhaps in the back we could, but not on the front. And
yeah,
so I don't see how we could do smaller than that on the front and have it actually make sense.
Okay, I mean, again, this is just beneficial because I don't know your house. I just I'm looking at Google Maps, which I find to be fairly accurate to keep you from going out in the cold. It's saying the distance between your house at what I determine or what I believe to be the closest point is like 25 feet. So pretty close to what you're saying, which is like it looks to be almost like a bay window structure off the rear of your neighbor's home. Okay. But at the very least, just to continue, I would like to just see something from your neighbors. I will tell you where I am right now. I think part of it, the distance between the two structures, I would say, in my opinion, is based on the placement of the house, your neighbor's house, and back in 1908, which you didn't have any control over. I would be fine with a variance there. I'm struggling with the side yard setback, our 10-foot setback, only because there are other ways to do the addition. I just don't know if it meets each of the tests that are within our code. And I will be honest, I would love to get you to yes, because the sheer, I got to choose my words carefully, bureaucracy that we went through on our house that resulted in we've got a house longer than yours, but we have almost 2 lots, but we are not permitted because we're historic. We're not permitted to go in the side yard. Sure. So I'd love to get there, but I am struggling with the side yard setback just because I don't know that it passes that test.
Okay. Thank you.
And
so
I will
much.
add to that because
I just wanted to mention that Kevin had to go pick up my daughter, so he just
Thank
he
you,
realized
Kevin.
the time and he ran out of the house. So
No problem.
You have just me now.
Okay, we won't take it personally.
I thought he was going to measure again.
No, we looked at the time and we're like, oh gosh, yeah.
I will add to what Connor said about the side yard and the historic, the pre code construction. We had it started off being a variance on Prospect, where the house we thought was 3 feet from the property line of the neighbor's house was 3 feet from the property line, and to me that was a unique feature that I was willing to take into account in deciding whether to grant a variance. And so, because you bought your house, you didn't really buy a house dependent on how close your neighbor's house was built long before we even considered side yard setbacks. So, it's not that I'm close to it. I think we need more information, but as one of 4 members, I'm not optimistic about this one.
And Bridget, did you want anything to add?
I think, everything that could be said is said, and I'm going to defer to the other members. It seems like there's a couple of hurdles here.
Okay. All right. Well, so you're going to go back and see if you can't get something in writing from your neighbor. Check the distance between the houses to confirm that, and then come back hopefully in the March meeting. I think it might be helpful to come back also with maybe a drawing of having the addition in the back as an option. I think that's in case the variance doesn't pass, particularly on maybe on both. But we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Really appreciate
let me just
feedback
Tracy,
and hearing us out.
Sure. Darren, go ahead.
No, I guess I just want to throw out a bit of caution that, I think we have to evaluate a variance based on the terms of the variance. And I don't want to get into a practice of having people come before us and say, we could build this monstrosity. And I'm not saying that's what you're talking about doing, Christy. I'm just saying that I don't want to put us in a posture of such humongous ADU or this addition off the back that would be even worse. So please give us the variance on the side. I was around when we went to 10 feet. I heard loud and clear that this value placed on open space and green space between buildings. and I just don't want to give people like an incentive to threaten to build something. And again, Kristen, I'm not saying this is you guys. I'm just saying,
Sure.
I don't want that to be the measure that we evaluate a variance against. I want it to be, according to the code, are there, you know, irregular shapes and topographies or other features that merit a variance, and then is the variance the minimally intrusive that we can approve.
Sure. Yeah. And it was probably more my personal opinion in terms of being an eyesore when we talked about what an accessory unit, could look like back there. In just in looking at when you see the back area, we're surrounded by a huge shed really close to our house on one side, a huge shed really close to, that we're all grandfathered in. And then the backyard that backs up to our yard, there's a huge shed there, and then there's a huge shed that are all really, really close to our property. So we're there's not a lot of green space to begin with. I wouldn't say so much on the side yard that we're asking about, but then in a lot of the other surrounding areas where we are. So, and we don't have a huge shed or a huge unit or anything that is really close, to our fence and close to the property line. But again, we're surrounded by houses that were grandfathered in.
So I guess as you come back, I would want to add a third, question to that, because I certainly appreciate you might not want to build an addition where you look out on somebody's non-conforming shed. And so I would be interested in knowing that aspect of it as well.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Christy.
Thanks. All right, we're going to move on to the number 4, which is the variance on 3906 Washington Street. Matt?
Sure. Ellen Mitchell and the Ackmans are here to request a variance for 3906 Washington Street, which is to replace an existing one-story addition on the rear of the property with a two-story addition with a basement to remain in the existing or slightly smaller footprint. Ellen, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. So yes, we are hoping to replace an existing one-story over basement addition in the rear of the house with a new two-story over basement rear addition. The current addition is flush with the main part of the house on the west side of the property line and extends about 3.5 feet to the east. We've already gotten feedback from Historic, and they requested that the new addition step in slightly from the main part of the house. So that's what we're proposing to do, which would make it less wide than the existing addition, but still slightly over into the side setback on the west side. The owners have received letters of support from both of the adjacent properties. So again, just to kind of summarize, we're making it less wide than it is existing. The depth would be the same, and we're also trying to kind of match the character of the house a little bit more than the current addition does.
And I'm sorry, have you been through HPC already? And have they approved the?
We've done the HOP process,
Okay.
and they support it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Council comments?
Can we get Matt's summary?
Okay. Matt?
I mean, I know I've read it, but Matt, but just
Sure.
your recommendation.
The existing addition was actually through Office of Zoning and Hearing was approved by variance by the county in 1988. The town had different side yard setbacks at that time, so it did not come before the town. So if the council was to take a position on this in favor of it, a Office of Zoning and Hearing appeal would still need to be made by the applicants to the county. But subsequently, they'll want to know what the council believes on our end before they make a decision. And again, the biggest issue that we faced when it was first brought before us was the sum of the two side yards. They still need to equal 20 feet if the addition is below 650 square feet, and they exceed that. Although they're requesting a 1.5 foot encroachment on the west side of the property, the east side of the property remained, I believe, 15. I can't read the drawing, it's a little too small, but it was 15 feet. So they met the 20-foot sum on the two side yards.
Yeah, I think it's actually, we're back to 17.5 feet.
Is that with the little?
Oh, and then I'm sorry, and then there's a 2-foot
encroachment on the east.
So 15.5 on the east side.
That's the projection, the 2 foot?
Yes, there's a projecting bay on the east side.
Okay.
I guess I have a quick question, Matt, for you. Is that I think the lot to the west is vacant, right?
Correct. So the Almonds own the lot, which is directly to the west of the property. It's a vacant lot. It does meet the county's standards for a buildable lot. However, the front lot is less than 50 feet. It has a pretty good depth, and the Almonds did provide a letter of support for the property. And then there's no issue on the east side with the car property, and they provided a letter of support as well.
No, and I think I generally support this. I just was curious if there's any concern that we'll run into the same issue of the previous variance hearing, where there's going to be, less than 15 feet between houses if they end up wanting to build on that vacant lot, something in the future. Are we going to run into issues?
It's possible if, like I said, they meet the minimum requirement on that vacant lot to build. If they were to build a property, it is a possibility that there is an issue with the nearer than 15 feet requirement within our code.
Okay.
We're already going to have that with this house because the main house not being renovated.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, because it already.
Closer.
Yeah,
That's true.
and as Councilmember Bartram noted before, we've run into this situation before on Prospect Street, where the existing house was located. I believe it was 5 feet from the property line or pretty close to that, and the new home could not meet the 15-foot minimum. So we would most likely take that into consideration if the property is built.
Okay. Fast. Thank you.
Darren, any comments?
No, I guess I'm curious why there's an Office of Hearings and Appeals, but why is that process being triggered? Is that because it's below 7 or 8 feet?
The applicant is still applying to encroach within the county's 7-foot setback. And the existing addition was done by variance through Office of Zoning and Hearing in 88. So my understanding from talking to Sean was they were told by their attorney that they would have to file with the Office of Zoning again.
Okay. I mean, I'm sympathetic to this because they're basically tearing down an existing intrusion and replacing it with something that's taller, but doesn't, it's actually less close to the property line, and to have to go through that process again seems cumbersome. But
Can't call it a repair.
I do think, actually, since Ellen, you're here, is there a reason you're not just cutting the roof off of the addition and going up to a second floor, adding a second floor? Or I guess you don't have a basement under the addition as well.
There is a basement under the existing, although it's not very well done. Structurally, we would want something a little more sufficient to support 2 stories. And I don't know if you guys were provided with any photos of the existing and sketches of what we're proposing, but the existing addition is a little out of character with the house, and we're trying to just tie the whole new addition in to be more of the style of the whole existing house.
Okay. Thank you.
Bridget, any comments? No. Nate, you're good?
I don't have any questions.
All good.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have a question regarding the variance? Not seeing any hands. Okay. Something in the chat. Yeah. Okay. Well, and the staff, you are supporting the variance, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, does someone want to make a motion?
So Mayor and Council, the resolution for the, if you support the variance request, will be at the March meeting. So we just need a motion for
Okay.
staff to draft the resolution. In
Okay.
support.
All right.
I move
I'll
that.
make
Go ahead.
Connor, come on, you always do it.
It's
I move
yours.
to draft a resolution for the variance on 3906 Washington Street to be considered at the March meeting.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all very much.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Ellen.
We're gonna be firing off motions tonight, Nate. It's gonna be a long meeting as it is.
Okay, and we're down to number 5, which is the Kensington Parkway Bicycling and Pedestrian Improvements. Nate.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Ken, yes.
All right. So I'll try to run through this really quickly. I need to apologize for the odd rectangular shape of the presentation. I did, one of the members of the working group put it together, and I've never seen it on this layout before, but we just have not been able to switch it. And Tracy's heard me say that at least
They
3
just
times.
did it in legal
But anyway,
instead of documents.
Yeah, but I've never seen a presentation like this before. So anyway, so what I'm looking for here after we're all said and done with giving this is really to get the green light from the rest of the council to pursue a request for proposal to do more detailed analysis for the options that you'll see today. So that's the take home here. The impetus for this has come at about a year ago. We had the report that was recommendation. There were 13 recommendations from the Pedestrian Bicycling Access and Safety Working Group. This was one of them, to consider bicycling and pedestrian improvements along Kensington Parkway. And we moved forward with this initial kind of thinking and options analysis that was done fully within the working group. We moved forward with it to align with the expanded bicycling access, the addition of the bike lanes and the shared parking south of the town along Kensington Parkway that will be built this spring sometime by the county and in partnership with WSSC. So we thought it was time to go in and analyze the options. So this is what this is. And the goal really is to continue those improvements to make a more bikeable, walkable path along Kensington Parkway, and to connect and leverage the fact that these other improvements were happening with the county. Okay, so in the options or the different sections here, we have 3 under consideration. You can see the longest one goes from basically Littledale over to Kent Street here, and then, to Calvert Place, and then from Calvert Place to Kent Street is a really small section 2, and then from Kent Street all the way to Frederick Avenue is the 3rd section. Here is divided by 3 into the 3. So when I'm going through these, I want you to think of these as not either or, but if and or yes and potentially doing all of them or a selection of them. It's not necessarily that we would do one or the other. So the first solution considered is thinking about having a bike facility within the road. So a separated bike facility like you see here. And on that first section, that long section along where Cabin Park is, we could do a separated bike lane on the east side next to the sidewalk. We could also have an additional designated route along the unfortunately named Kensington Parkway, which is basically the service road, duplicate name, but the service road that's there on the other side of the creek to the east. So you'll hear me talk about Kensington Parkway in two different ways, but the service road is essentially this road right here. I think you all know it, but it's how cars access the homes that are right there. The second is to, the second option, or the second section to have a bike lane. It would have to be same thing, but just a little bit narrower. Then the third section is where it gets interesting and a little bit complicated. One option would be to remove or keep, keep the parking spaces along the western side there where the houses are. And you would have to have cars and bikes share the roadway going both north and south. The second option would be to remove the parking spaces on the western side and reduce the lanes, but you'd be able to squeeze a bike lane in there. And then the third option is to consider this 50-foot right-of-way that we have on the east side of Silver Creek. That is essentially the Kensington Parkway service road, extends there behind the creek, between the creek and the apartments there, which we own. We found out that we own this, and we could add a separate bike path there. This is just basically showing those, what that would look like. That first option where you're sharing the road here with the cars, hopefully not biking on the sidewalk, which many people still do. And the second option is they're removing the parking and having a separated bike lane. This is that paper road, because it's only on paper, it's no road, but we have this access to this where you could extend along the service road here and essentially connect up here right where the Clem Kennedy Bridge is, right there over Frederick. Another solution is improving the signage, giving people better direction for where people should be biking, where people can biking, where there are some alternative routes. Here's an example where we could kind of make signed alternative route here. If you're not comfortable going down Kensington Parkway, you could direct them off onto the service road into this paper road, or even, maybe more neighborhood route along by the mansion and in through the neighborhood there. The pedestrian improvements that we flagged were that regardless of what bicycling improvements are made, making more and more visible crosswalks across Kensington Parkway, because there's only really one right now and it's not very well marked, but making it easier for people to cross the street. And then also adding potentially sidewalks on the west side, particularly those that are the sections that are north of Washington Street, where there are missing sidewalks right now. So how we got to tonight, I presented a version of this to the Mobility and Traffic Committee about a month ago. And then from that input, we revised it, went back to the Pedestrian Bicycling Access and Safety Working Group, and incorporated the feedback from that into what you're seeing tonight. The working group's response was, basically any detailed analysis should consider all the options, because we may not have considered an option that whatever firm that we would hire to do a more detailed analysis, they might come up with different solutions that are potentially better, but this is just a start. Even so, they tended to like this, in particular, the option of using the service road and then extending it to the paper road. But regardless of if that was an option that was developed, that it shouldn't be that or the full Kensington Parkway, but maybe Kensington Parkway would still get some sharrows and not a separated designated bike lane, but with pedestrian improvements. this was just us thinking kind of during the meeting, and that was where the working group was generally settling on. But again, it's not theirs or our decision. This is something that should go to a design stage and thorough public input from that point once we can see the options and what they look like and what the costs might be. Some of the concerns that they flagged, and again, a detailed analysis will get into more of this, but is that the section between Frederick and Littledale is going to be a little bit cumbersome because there is parking there and it gets narrow, and that's a section that is critical for connecting from the improvements that are being done by the county Department of Transportation and whatever we're doing. So that's going to take some careful attention. And then potential issues around if we were to build out that paper road, there could be some concerns with flooding or getting mucky around there because of the way that the slope is in the terrain there. So that would have to be studied as well. One thing that we discussed over email since I presented that to the working group was, the fact that we may want to, and this is a recommendation of the working group after discussing it over email, we may want to, if we're going to go ahead with this detailed analysis on Kensington Parkway, we may also want to put in the scope of work the consideration of Pliers Mill improvements. We did not study those initially, but I think that it could still go forward with a detailed analysis. And the reason being is that Kensington Parkway and Pliers Mill are really the two key portions of the bicycling master plan that the county has for kind of connecting the core network for the surrounding areas. So at the same time, the new development there, the crossing of Kensington, Pliers Mill in Connecticut makes for bike lanes. It's an opportune time to consider kind of similarly, like we're considering the Kensington Parkway improvements because of the WSSC and Department of Transportation, the County Department of Transportation project. This would be another good impetus for why we would do it at Pliers Mill too. Yeah, so there's good justification for why we would want to consider them both in a request for proposals, but that would be great to hear your feedback on that. Last slide. This is where, again, back to the main point, looking for, I'm happy to answer questions. I think there are other people in the working group that are on the call tonight, but really the next step would be doing a detailed engineering or more detailed design and visualization of options, including cost benefit, looking at what the CapEx and OpEx would be, maintenance, timelines, and then if there are resources for the capital improvements that would be needed, helping us to identify what those would be. And have in bold here because it's critical. Fully advocate for this is that we want to do thorough public outreach and get input along the way for whatever options are going to be considered. All right. I will keep my screen up in case you ask me to go back to look at anything that I presented, but that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, Council, do you have any questions for Nate regarding the presentation?
Nate, can you just go back to this paper road issue? Are we talking about a paper road between Kent and Frederick?
Yes. It's behind the Mormon apartments next to the creek.
And it, because I don't know that, the wooded area as well as anybody else would, but somebody down there, but it would appear that creek flows through that paper road, like at a very obtuse angle, meaning it's almost parallel to the paper road.
Yeah, it's parallel. It goes right here. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. And so is it all on one side of this road?
Yeah, it's between the apartments. It's basically this 50-foot section right here. And this is not drawn exactly. I just put a dashed line on there, but this is basically where it is. Matt had a good view of it.
There's a 50-foot right of way to the east of Silver Creek. I believe Delegate Carr confirmed with us that it was the old trolley line, if I remember correctly. So it's a 50-foot right of way essentially from Kent Street up to Frederick Avenue. The Brookside Apartments have been maintaining the area for the town for a number of years, but it is within our right-of-way jurisdiction.
I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking is I see sort of the outline of the creek between Kensington Parkway and the dashed red line, but I also know that the creek goes to the right of Old Town Market. So somehow it switches over.
Yeah, this might be more like here's where the path would be. This is again not drawn
Yeah.
necessarily exactly how it would look.
Okay.
But yeah, it would extend. The path does start, I think, exactly directly across from where Kensington Parkway terminates here.
Okay.
The
Hopefully,
service road.
I would be interested in seeing what our right of way there is, and then how much that would impact Clum Kennedy Park.
It wouldn't impact Clem Kennedy at all, and it's because it's separated by the creek, which is pretty wide there. And it would be more likely to be a pervious type path, not a hard surface path. I mean, that would be part of the study, is what
Exactly.
would work there best. But you know, it's a good opportunity to get bike riders off that narrowing of Kensington Parkway, and you want to discourage them from going through the Clum Kennedy. So having them on the other side of the creek would be better.
Yeah. No, and
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. I just I in the good old days, we could just put an impervious path and not worry about ADA and endangered species and all that stuff. But it just seems like a lot of times these days, to build something, we suddenly trigger so many additional laws that jack up the cost. I'm happy to continue kind of looking
Well,
into the.
if you're riding a bicycle, you're probably not ADA. And then there really is plenty of room there. I mean, it's worth a walk over there, on a warm weather day we're going to have coming up, and just seeing how much space there actually is.
Okay.
So,
But because it's great, they're great points, and I think something that we'd want to look at when we
Yeah.
study it. And
The only
something I
other
forgot
point-
to mention, Darren.
What?
Sorry, I wanted to mention that here, if you can see my cursor, on the
Yep.
service road, I don't think we're talking about a separated bike lane here. This is just a guided path, maybe some sharrows, just better signage to get people on here. But maybe we do need to do some infrastructure there. I don't know the width of the road and how much traffic is there, but all this would be considered, I think, in the study.
The only other thing, and I don't want to, make this project too broad or bring in too many sort of unrelated issues, but if we're going to do this, I really hope we would finally get rid of the sharrows on Connecticut Avenue. If we're going to provide a safe alternative on Kensington Parkway, I just think bikes have absolutely no business being on Connecticut Avenue. The county has told us they would never have supported putting those things in. And it just seems like it's high time to get rid of those.
Well, the good thing is, I'm laughing just because it seems so distance-wise far away, but I know that it is the main alternate route. So the good thing is that the TLC grant study is considered, these are part of the things that are being considered in that analysis, and there'll be plenty of time for input for that too over the next couple months, as well as the state will be putting out, I think you're aware of this, the Connecticut corridor study, and I think that will get to not just pedestrian improvements, but also I think it'll speak to traffic calming measures and bicycling as well.
yeah, I understand the state highway, Connecticut Avenue has been delayed, even though they're kind of updating some things after presenting it to the delegation, our 18.
Yeah, I actually
18.
checked with them today, Tracy, and they said that they will have it done by the end of the month.
Okay. Yeah, I spoke to Janet Coe at Chevy Chase View, and they were having to go back and revise some of the ish study. So,
Yeah.
because they had told us it would be posted on the website and it has not yet. So,
Yeah.
okay. So I think as, having attended some of these meetings with Nate, I think there's some great opportunities here to create a real bike connection, but I think we do need professional help to make sure that we're doing it correctly and providing the markings that are necessary or the least maybe obtrusive to, that we could do it with paint, or we can do it with stenciling, or we can do it with, a small amount of signage. We may not have to get into the flex posts or things like that. So I think having the professional help would be really funds well spent. So
It would be great to hear other council members if they've questions, or especially on the Pliers Mill recommendation too, because that I think it'd be good to get some guidance on that.
now, is the Pliers Mill that was down through Kengar? Is that correct, or is it in both directions?
No, we're talking about Pliers Mill on the east side of town.
Okay.
Because
I
that's
know.
another.
Yeah, Bridget stepped off for a few minutes to take care of Maya. She'll be back, so
Okay.
she may not have an opportunity to chime in here. But Connor, did you have any additional thoughts?
No, I mean, I think the question before us is, would we support funding to get more of a technical study for an RFP, right? Because I think the kind of questions I'd have are the kind of things that's why we would go for a technical, right? I mean, one of the biggest things as I looked at your presentation is, I see missed opportunities. Our kids aren't clustered into Silver Creek Middle School. And what a shame, because this would have been a perfect pathway to get kids biking down to that school. But, that's just the way it is. But when I look at the Kensington Parkway, call it service road option, I'd love to hear. So yeah, I'm supportive of funding for more technical expertise, because my immediate questions would be, does, taking a jagged approach and moving off the parkway onto the service road and then back, does that typically drop ridership? People are like, hey, I'm just going to continue on the parkway. Like, I know there's a path over there. There's also a lot more curb cuts. There's a lot, additional controlled roads. It's a 20-foot wide street. I just wonder if keeping it on the main parkway makes the most sense. And then it comes down to other planned infrastructure stuff. Go back to so those are my thoughts. I think, yeah, I'd love to get those questions answered too.
Which slide do you want me to go to, Connor?
Pliers Mill.
Yeah.
So we've got a separated, in the bike master plan, it's a proposed separated bike lane from Summit over to Connecticut, and then moving eastward from Connecticut to the intersection with Lexington. And then at that point, it just becomes a side path. I guess the idea is that you then drive up the apron for the Montessori school and use the existing sidewalk that's there.
I'm not sure, actually. I have not looked very detailed at this. Chris, if he's still on the call, may know more.
Okay.
My co-chair, Chris Zappi. I don't know if you want to come in, if you're here.
And if he's not,
I thought I saw him earlier, but that's okay.
We're not fixing anything tonight. The question is just, do we throw Pliers Mill Road into the scope of a PWS to be written for an RFP? Sorry, for a performance work statement for a request for proposal. I realize I'm using jargon.
No.
So
I think it actually doesn't matter so much, because these are indicative. This is what they proposed when they studied it, thought this was the best recommendation for a certain section of roadway, right? But as you can see with Kensington Parkway, which I think was recommending a separated bike lane, we're suggesting to consider other options too, to do a more detailed analysis. So I think we don't have to be bounded by what's shown here.
Mhm.
I think
Great.
Ann Banville has her hand up, Nate, if,
Oh, sure.
Hi, Ann Banville, resident of Kensington Parkway.
Hi, Ann.
Nate, can you please give me what the proposal is for the block of Frederick to Littledale?
There is no proposal. We need to study it. That's the part that I was saying is really challenging because the house is there, and I think you live in one of those houses.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously there's parking there, and the way that the parking along Kensington Parkway is being dealt with in the portions of the improvements that are south of town that the county is doing, is they've interspersed parking in, they've combined parking and a bike lane there. I just don't know, we don't know if there's an opportunity to do both and keep the parking and have a bike lane too, or you would have to do a share-o and not have any separated bike lane. It's a tricky part, not only because of the parking, but if you have a bike lane, let's say on the east side, or excuse me, if you have bike lanes or share-os on the east side, you would also need to figure out a way to get them across to the county part that is going to be on the west, excuse me. You have bike lanes in our section of Kensington Parkway on the west side next to Cabin Park, right? If there's share-os, you have to somehow figure out a way to get them onto the east side where it joins up with the county portion where those improvements are going to be. They're not going to be on the west side, they're going to be on the east side. So right there is probably where you would do it, but that depends on if any improvements were going to happen on the west side, which is not what we really looked at. We suggested to keep it all on the east side, but again, it's not a detailed analysis.
Okay, thank you. My concern is that overall, you are not taking into account the current recreational use of Kensington Parkway with respect to Kensington Cabin Park and the playing fields. And and the basketball court is there and the tennis court. What that means is that there is parking on both sides of Kensington Parkway all the time, either for families and children's soccer or down at Kensington Cabin Park for the use of the basketball court and so on. It's a very happy situation that cabin and that park and the playing fields are used all the time. And that is the greater number of people rather than bicyclists, I will tell you that. And so to disrupt it is a huge concern. The second concern I have is that Kensington Parkway has become somewhat of an alternative to Connecticut Avenue, so that we get people going down on Kensington Parkway to avoid traffic on Connecticut and then up again. So you've got added traffic and you've got the recreational use all the time going on up and down. And then add the third factor, which is this is a residential area, Nate. This is not like other areas where bike lanes have been proposed. And so I think there's a great danger of spoiling the residential use of Kensington Parkway, the residents' use of Kensington Parkway. And then add the fact of the white poles that separate this, was so unsightly. And if you're familiar, Kensington Parkway was designed as a country road, and it's a lovely street, and it is used by cyclists all the time. They come from all over down, and I don't see now I'm not talking about the recreational uses. I'm talking about the people who are serious cyclists. They already use the parkway, and I don't see them using any of the kind of proposed thing that you're talking about. They're going too fast. They use it as a straightaway, and that's been going on for 30 plus years that I've been living here. So there are already established recreational uses of Kensington Parkway, residential uses, and now increased traffic. And I think it's just a terrible idea to turn this into part of bike lanes in the way that you're proposing and talking about. Those are my concerns in a nutshell, and I wanted the council to hear them now. I would also urge you to do nothing until you get outreach to residents along Kensington Parkway, as opposed to come forward with a plan. And I base that on the county's experience in the block of Kensington Parkway below me, where they have been very heavy-handed in dealing with resident concerns there. And I would not like to see that repeated here. It's just not the way we live in Kensington. So I would say that sooner rather than later, please do outreach to residents along Kensington Parkway. I will take any questions you have about what I said.
Thank you, Anne. I actually don't have any questions. I just appreciate you sharing your concerns. And I think this is exactly the reason why we would want to go forward with more designed analysis to understand what this would look like. It's hard to do outreach when you don't have a good understanding of really what it would look like, what it would feel like, data supporting a lot of the claims that you make about how it's used. I mean, that's what we want to study. And I think knowing what the costs would be, you know, what the timelines would be, what the options would be. I want to be clear that we are not proposing to do any of this. It's to analyze it. And I've heard positive feedback from many people who want this to go forward. So it's really just asking to get the green light to move forward with getting the data, studying it, and hearing what people want.
Yeah, and I would urge you to become familiar with the recreational uses already.
I use it that way all the time.
The basketball court, the tennis court.
I am very familiar with it.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah,
then you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. And I don't think, and maybe I glossed over this part, but at least in the options we were preliminarily considering, it wouldn't take any of the parking away from along Cabin Park. I mean, that was not a suggestion, at least what we were saying. But again, it's, you know, the recommendation is to move forward with more detailed analysis, but I'm very familiar with it. I mean, I'm there almost every week with our family.
Okay, thank you, Anne. I don't see any other.
One final question. Where do I see all these plans posted, please? I couldn't really see on your screen, so obviously I'm interested in getting a copy of the various plans that were the visual plans that were shown.
Is the presentation with the other information for the meeting, Nate, or probably not, right?
It should be. It may not have gone out, but easily we can make this available. It should be available. Yeah.
It was in the minutes. It was in the minutes from your last meeting. So, Anne, there's a link I just put in the comments that'll take you right to the PDF.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. I think we can go off the screen. Stop sharing your screen now.
Okay, I see Anne's hand is up again. Were you going to ask another question?
Or you just did take it down?
Old hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right.
Good. Thank you. All right. Not seeing any other hands. Let's see. Okay, let me take this off. Oops. Okay, good. Counselor Bridget's still not here, so Darren and Connor, did you have any other questions? Okay.
No, my gut instinct is that analyzing improvements to the Pliers Mill Metropolitan Concord intersection is distinctive enough from this project. And I think it's, you know, an intractable problem that I would hate to sort of try to look at them together, and I think I would prefer to address them separately.
Is that a problem, Nate, or?
No, it's not a problem. I think there's economies of scale we can get with the bid. If we're gonna look at one, I think we could look at the other, but they are different.
Okay, and we're looking at putting out bids, so this would be in our next fiscal budget, correct?
Yeah.
Starting July 1? Okay,
Or sooner if we can do it.
okay.
Matt'll check the couch cushions at town hall.
And again, just to emphasize, it's not bids to go forward with a plan.
No, it's for the
to
study.
Analyze the options and then
Right,
elicit feedback on those options.
Right.
And to get the data to show, what the current usage is and, analyze.
do we have
What
any
people want.
recent traffic data on Kensington Parkway, Matt? No,
No, we actually will have some by the end of this fiscal year, though. We'll have Kensington Parkway, the 10200 block down to Kensington Cabin Park.
okay.
Will it include cyclist use, Matt?
I'll ask the traffic engineer. It's for vehicles. I don't know how they would measure bicycles, but I can ask the traffic engineer how they would classify that.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And how many people ride their bikes on the sidewalk there because they don't feel comfortable? Is that possible to get? You can't get that probably.
I don't know about that. Let me check with Joe. The traffic study we have planned for Kensington Parkway was for vehicles and speeds.
Speed, right.
Again, I'll have to talk with our traffic engineer because I don't know what they're able to do outside of vehicles.
Okay.
So counting bicycles might need to be a separate part of the data collection.
Yeah, we can look at when we get the data, we can look at what we need to put in the RFP. But we
Okay.
can work on that with you, Matt.
Okay, good.
Hey, real quick, Nate, I'm looking back through your PowerPoint. Where are I'm going to make the assumption, are these images taken from the Bike Master Plan? The cartoon drawings that depict the built infrastructure of the different.
No, we did that. So that I should have, I failed to give the credit to Jonathan Rogers and Carol O'Toole. They actually went out and did the measurements of the width of the road there at the 3 different spots with our measuring wheel, and then used the software that they use in their day jobs to do a quick analysis of it. So they produced that. The one for Pliers Mill is out of the county master plan. But there's no depiction. That's just an aerial view of the dashed lines, right?
So I just want to make sure I understand it. Based on that, and if either of them are this is saying if you had a separated bike lane with 2 drive lanes, 2 11-foot drive lanes, I guess I'm on page 5, if that helps you. Each drive lane could accommodate or would have 1,500 people per hour that are using it, and a separated bike lane would have 12,000 people per hour. Is that what that is? Am I reading that right? I'm not sure.
I think so. I think it's what it could. I think it's saying that's what it could accommodate, not necessarily what it
Would be.
I would be very curious just to understand how, from a traffic engineering standards, can a 12-foot wide separated bike lane accommodate 12,000 people every hour? Not to say obviously it would. And Banville, wherever you are, please.
It seems like a lot of people, right?
But if we're going to put something out and start socializing, I think some of these just need to be cleaned up, and some explanations of, we're not saying we're putting 12,000 bikers on Kensington Parkway. This is just, whatever the standard is per what, I don't know if there's a state standard or a county standard or a federal standard for roadways, but
fair
bring some
point.
detail. Also, curious why a 4-foot wide sidewalk can accommodate 0 people. So, just if you guys, take.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That was it. Just so that. Okay, that was just a nitnoid comment. Sorry. Thanks.
It's fine.
Okay, I'm not sure at this point, because it would be going through the budget process. Do we need a motion, Matt, or is this just something that you'll?
I don't think so. What I do need to do is I need to work with Councilmember Engel and probably Chris Zappi to kind of get a better understanding of putting some specs together for an RFP going forward. 'Cause I don't know. I have a lot of questions just how to write this. And I'm hoping that Chris can help us, Nate.
I think we can work with you. Other members of the working group can probably help too.
Okay, so my plan was to set aside some funds for FY23 for the study. And then we can put an RFP out and go from there.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Hopefully we
Alright.
can piggyback off somebody else's RFP so we don't have. I'm kidding. But, no, look, I support, putting some resources towards studying alternative means of transportation in town. I don't know, before we study them, I don't want to predetermine the outcome, but obviously, what we do for bicyclists can possibly be to the detriment of other modes of transportation and other uses. So I think it's important that we sort of get the analysis and then decide, how we want to move forward.
And I think that was part of the discussion of why you would want to, take that turn and go up the service road instead of staying on the main road. And then you wouldn't need necessarily those flex poles that I know Ann doesn't like.
Right.
I'm not wild about them. So
I don't
can you
think
just make,
anyone is.
yeah. So I think that's where we need the professional help that, because I think less is better if we can get away with it yet and also keep it safe. And that was definitely a part of why the paper road was a good option compared to keeping people on a road. And I am totally not, I do not want to take parking away from our residents, whether it's down on Ann's End or on the other end across from Clump Kennedy. So I think that's very important. And so the more we can get them, bicyclists off of those areas, the better. But again, professional help and getting the data would be really helpful. So,
yeah. And it's not, and just to reiterate, it's not about, saying we need to build all this infrastructure just for the sake of building it and accommodating bicyclists. We want to look at pedestrian improvements too, getting people who are parking on that other side safely across the road at, various crosswalks, to improve the sidewalks, do other traffic calming measures. I saw Allison Derlin put a comment in the chat if that was to be included. Yeah, we want to do all of that. But for those that don't feel safe, and I'm one of those families that when I have my kids riding their bikes, even at that part of Kensington Parkway, certainly the one to the south, we go up on the service road often, or we'll go on the sidewalk. And I don't like to do that, but it can, giving some people an alternative route and giving them options, I think, is what we want to explore. And keeping it minimalist, right? So if it's just adding a Shero, with the dash line or the lines on the road and not having the poles, that's great. That's where we ultimately settle. And like I said, that's what the working group was kind of gravitating towards anyway. But yeah, that's the spirit of it.
okay. And I'm going to let you have the last word.
Thanks. I just do want to keep in mind the idea of the many versus the few. And the many now are really already using the Parkway in a big way all the time. The kind of cycling you're talking about is really recreational use, which is not going to be anywhere near the level of activity that, say, the basketball court across from me gets. So I really hope you will think in terms of not inconveniencing the many for the sake of the few. I think that's very important when it comes to a residential area. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. Okay. So I think we're done and we can move on. All right. So number 6 is the Clump Kennedy Park improvements. everybody received that copy. This was something that we were probably going to be putting in the budget for next year, but the opportunity came up to do it now. It's probably less expensive to do it now than to wait, another into the CIP for next year. So we want to widen the steps, which is currently at 4 feet. We want to widen it to 5. And we're also bringing in a kind of a boulder wall around that, more so around the rose gardens because of the water runoff is an issue. And then we're also having problems with bicyclists trying to get into the park that way. So get kind of
an access road.
I know. So we want to send it to the other side of the creek, but it'll discourage the shortcut into the park. So anyway, because it's not in the budget, we're asking the council to approve this next phase so we can get a start on it now versus next year. Council have any questions? Not seeing any hands. Not seeing any. Okay, so can we get a motion from the council so that staff can go ahead and sign the contract, and they'll get the work done in March. One of the things that we are putting into the budget for Clem Kennedy next year is we want to bring electricity into the park. So that's something we want to use it more. And part of these improvements is to be able to have more events, but electricity is extremely handy. And it also helps the crew because they can get water out of the creek with a pump, but they need electricity to run the pump. So that's otherwise they have to bring in a generator. So having electricity for events and for watering purposes is really helpful. So, but that will definitely be in next year's budget. It's line item. So can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the invoice for Shore Landscaping for improvements to Clem Kennedy Park.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Let's see, I don't need that. Okay, council, do you have any other reports that you want to bring forward before we go to town manager and staff? Nate, did you want to say anything else?
I've talked enough, but just 2 very quick things.
Sure.
Just wanted to flag to everybody that there's a new speed camera on Connecticut Avenue, right near Franklin. I think at the intense pressure of Chevy Chase View and advocacy, I should say, and then support, I think, of the District 18 delegation. So grateful for that, because I know that that's something they wanted very much so to help calm traffic in that area where there's been so many tragic accidents. So that was installed, I think, in January. So I think that we may have missed it, the opportunity to announce it. I don't think we flagged that. The other thing is related to that on the Connecticut Avenue study for the TLC grant that we have. Just want to give a heads up. I'll give a more detailed update next month, but we are going to have a public hearing, or not public hearing, a public meeting, public forum for considering the options that are going to be presented by that study. That date is going to be April 21st, the evening of April 21st, and it's going to be hybrid. It's going to be in-person option at the Armory. So just to flag that, you'll hear a lot of it from me and from the town over the next 2 months, but just want to put it on people's radar. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Darren, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't for this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Connor?
Just one, the Montgomery County's Planning Historic Preservation Office sent a letter that they will begin work along St. Paul Street with the handful of historic homes there, of which I live in one of them. I'm sorry, I'm a custodian of one of them, so I was told. But long story, hopefully shorter, is we did work on our home. We applied for the tax credit program and we were denied. The state tax credits, the county ones, are still pending. And when we inquired as to why, it turns out the state does not recognize any of the homes along St. Paul Street north of Metropolitan, even though they are in the county's historic district, the Kensington's historic district with the county. They are not part of the group of homes that are recognized in the National Register of Historic Places, so they don't qualify for state tax credits, which I didn't know as a property owner. And I talked to some of my neighbors, and they all assumed as well that they did qualify because they're in a historic district. So brought it up with Historic Preservation Office, and I'm very glad to hear there, at least this isn't guarantee anything, but they have taken up the beginning of evaluation for these homes to be included into the National Register of Historic Places. There's no, if granted, there's no retroactive, but it would mean that if approved going forward, any work performed with a historic area work permit would then qualify for the state historic preservation tax credit. So
wasn't HPC surprised that it wasn't that your house wasn't included?
Yeah, in fact, HPC has, without their help, I don't think we would have gotten this far, because the state was vehement that it was not. For people who care about the ins and outs of this, the reason why is, even though the county, the town engaged the county back in 1979, 1980 to create the historic district, and these homes were included in an amendment of that historic district, the state views it as an improperly created historical set of homes, that they were lassoed up the center of the street because there's a gap from Metropolitan to the corner of Oberon where the first house is, there's 4 houses in between. So they see it as it does not meet the standard of the Department of the Interior, and therefore they will not recognize them, even though they're in a county historic district. The county was extremely surprised. They just assumed as well that they were included or would be included with tax credits. And in fact, they thought there were tax credits that had been granted by the state, but they were somewhat shocked. So they are trying to see if they can rectify that, whether it's some way to get them recognized in the current historic district or possibly having to create a smaller sub-district that would then qualify just for the state credits. We already qualify for the county, so it doesn't have to change any of that, but it may have to create its own smaller sub-historic district to try and get the state to authorize it.
Okay. Yeah, I did share that letter because I got one in the mail, and I shared it with the Kensington Historical Society at the last board meeting. And just as an FYI, because I know on meetings that the KHS has had, they're, have let, homeowners know that they're eligible for these tax credits. So I think, everybody's been under the impression, and including yourself, who obviously was caught off guard. And so I think Rebecca Bala will probably, she'll do her due diligence. So she can't get it done. I'm not sure anybody else can. So.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay. Bridget, got back in time. Do you have anything to report or? Rehydrating after you've been with the baby. You're good.
I need snacks, constant snacks. No, just the lighting drink, so I can wait.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. Well, I just have a couple of little things. Was anybody on the 214 today's meeting with the transportation committee? I was busy at work today and I wasn't able to log in. we had written that letter for the Summit Avenue extension to be returned to the CIP. Our county executive took it out of the CIP, and we sent a letter to the Transportation Committee asking them that they put it back in. And that meeting was today at 9:30. So I can follow up with Evan Glass to see how that went. So this is a bit frustrating. I did have I was at a Vision Zero meeting on Saturday, or as an event on Saturday, and had the opportunity to speak with Mark Elridge. He made the big mistake of asking me what he could do for me. And my response was, well, put the Summit Avenue extension back in the CIP. So he has different views on the topic. So you know, we're have asked the county council to put it back in, and we do have you know, Andrew Friedson is supporting it, as well as Evan Glass and some other council members. But we'll see if you know, what else we can do to get it back into the CIP budget. So anyway, so that's where we are on that. I know Racial Justice Committee is meeting on the 16th, I think this Wednesday, and they are looking at possibly holding a Juneteenth event this year, and would be looking for the town to help fund that event. So we'll have more information probably next month from Ann Lichter, but I just want to give you the heads up that we have some volunteers who are interested in putting that event together. So certainly if we have the people that want to work on it, that we can help support it. So we'll see where that is. That more information is coming probably at the March meeting. Also, just wanted to update everybody that the Warner Mansion, the GO committee and the Fed committee, which is the government operations and the planning, housing and economic development committees, met last week, and they voted to approve the sale of the Warner Mansion and the carriage house. So it's moving on to the full council on tomorrow, and it's on the consent calendar. So that pretty much sounds like that they will approve it. So the house and the carriage house would be sold to the Warner Circle Mansion Condominiums LLC. So this is indeed really great news that we should be seeing hopefully soon the renovation of the house and the carriage house. So this is great news. So I expect there'll be opportunities to review plans through the Historic Preservation Commission at some point, but the house is going to finally get the renovation repairs and have reactivated with people living there, which is great news. So let's see. Oh, and one other item I wanted to bring up to everybody's attention was, you know, we're moving into County Council District 4, the new 4, and we have an opportunity. We will be getting a new county council person, and I'd like to have think about having a candidates forum. Right now we have 3 people that are running for the county council seat for District 4. And I was hoping to put together a ad hoc committee to help organize that. Would certainly want to do it before the primary, which I believe is in June. And we could possibly look at adding the at-large members as well. So is there someone on the council who'd be interested in working on that with me or Connor? Okay, great. Bridget? Okay, good. And we'll hopefully get a couple of residents would be helpful as well to put that together. I don't know whether you know, we're just going to do it by Zoom or we want to do a hybrid, but that's something that the ad hoc committee can decide. So I'll reach out to you guys probably tomorrow and see what we can get a meeting going. Okay, good. Thank you. And the last thing I just want to announce that the town of Kensington was chosen to be one of MML's Spotlight Maryland towns. So this is they will have a videographer coming to the town to take some videos, and it's just little spots. It's like 30 seconds, but we'll be out there with some other towns. I believe Gaithersburg, Poolsville, and the town of Kensington are the towns that are being recognized in Montgomery County. So, but it's statewide, so there'll be other towns as well, like Annapolis is on there, and Upper Marlboro, and some others. So, so that was a pleasant surprise to be chosen for that. Okay, so that's all I've got. So let's move on down to the town manager and staff. Matt.
Mayor and Council, there's 3 House bills that we've been asked to support, from 1 from Delegate Carr and 2 from Delegate Solomon. The first one is House Bill 381, which is a municipalities charter amendment notice. Essentially, what this would allow is a municipality to no longer have to post in 4 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation after a charter resolution is adopted. Like, for example, the charter resolution that we're introducing this evening, if it were to be adopted by the town, in the future, we would have to post in the Washington Post 4 consecutive weeks. This has become an issue for a large number of smaller municipalities in Maryland. And what the bill would allow us to do is do what we're already doing now, either post it in our Around Town Journal or to send a postcard. So if anyone has any questions on HB 381?
No questions. It seems like a no for me, at least.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think this is just sensible government.
Well, the smaller newspapers are pretty much gone now. And so quite honestly, the state is just finally catching up to this. They're figuring out that municipalities should not have to advertise, in the Washington Post and spend thousands of dollars on this type of thing. So having an alternative is good. Okay. Is any other questions on that from the council? Anyone in the audience? Okay. Do you want a motion to support the letter, or?
Yes.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move.
Go ahead, Nate.
It's 9:04, Nate.
Okay, I'll move to support drafting a letter for the town's support for HB 0381.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Great. Okay,
Aye.
thank you. All right, number 2.
Thank you. Senate Bill 835, which was also submitted as House Bill 1034. I don't know if Delegate Carr is still on the call. If he'd like to provide additional information.
There he is.
I'm going to turn it over to Delegate Carr because this is his bill. So.
All right, thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody. So yeah, so the bill number is it's Senate Bill 376 and House Bill 1083. So basically, the idea behind the bill is to strengthen the existing law from 2007 that the town was involved in getting passed. And that law is, sets out the rules for when a municipality wants to acquire the street lighting from a utility and then take over the ownership. That way they can partner with the private sector directly to install the lights that they want, choose the maintenance provider that they want. That existing law from 2007 is not working. No municipality has been successful in making use of that. So this bill comes back to strengthen that original law, and it's enabling. It just sets out a more predictable process for how to resolve disputes how do you value the lights? What are the steps that would be involved, and what's the role of the Public Service Commission in doing it? It's modeled after laws that have been on the books in a number of other states. And the hearing for the Senate bill is tomorrow at 1 p.m. and then the House bill is on March 10th.
That's a quick turnaround for a letter, Al.
So
Did
yes,
MML
indeed. Yes,
did
indeed.
MML already weigh in supporting this bill?
What was the question?
Did MML already weigh in to support this bill?
Yes, MML is in support of the bill, and we've gotten letters from about 5 other municipalities so far, and I know there are some other municipalities meeting tonight that are, having a similar conversation.
Did Chevy Chase Section 5, are they supporting it? Because I know Andy Harney's.
Yes, we received a letter from Andy Harney in support of the bill.
Okay. Because I know she follows it very closely, and it's something that's they're very interested in. So, okay. Bridget, do you have anything to add to it? I know you follow it closely.
No, I had a little summary, but I didn't know Al was gonna be here, so I feel like
Okay.
I'm out of my league. Gonna say right here.
Okay.
So just help me understand it. We have a law that isn't working. And so we're going to replace it with this law that's modeled on other laws in other states. Is there anything that you can point to say that these other laws in other states have been more successful than our law has been?
I can say something here if you want me to, Al, or I can shut up. If you look at the law as it exists now, it's kind of obtuse. There's lots of kind of amorphous affirmations and not a whole lot of definition. And I think what is sort of an improvement, at least to me when I read it, is there's actual definitions that will say this is what you do have to do, this is what you don't do. It kind of lays everything out in a way that's much more explicit. And frankly, this is something that I've had to do in other commodities. You write the law, there's an entity that seems to be able to wriggle their way around it, and you come back and make it more explicit. I mean, that's what I see happening here, at least.
And so what other states have adopted this and found success?
Pennsylvania, I think. Where else, Al?
So New York State, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, all have laws. One of the issues, where things typically, grind to a halt is when you talk about the value. How do you put a value on the lights that are owned by the utility to be acquired? And the way that the 2007 law was written didn't exactly jibe with the Maryland Constitution. So this law is written to be completely compatible with the Maryland Constitution for how to value lights. District of Columbia is another example. All those lights were transferred from PEPCO to the DC government in the 80s, and so they have the complete freedom to manage those lights as they see fit without being limited by the tariff or the Public Service Commission or the utility.
Okay.
Nate, you or Connor have any questions?
I do not.
Okay.
Nope. Thanks.
So we need to get a letter in before 1 o'clock, or?
So the letter can, so 10 a.m. tomorrow is the deadline to get it into the official bill file, but there's nothing stopping a letter from being just emailed to the committee afterwards. That's another way to get it, to the decision makers.
Okay. Okay. Can you email Matt the information of where it should go, unless you've already done that? I just want to make sure that it gets to the right spot. Okay, because we can just keep it simple and that way we're get it in faster. Okay, well, let's make a motion. I don't see any hands. Anybody has any questions regarding this, supporting this bill? Okay. Can somebody make a motion?
I'll make a
Bridget, you want to
motion.
make a motion?
No.
Or Darren, you
Sorry,
can do it?
Bridget.
Go ahead, dear.
No, you spent the work putting stuff together.
For nothing. I make a motion to write a letter in support of should we do HB, or is it 03?
1083.
1083. There you go.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Okay, number 3.
Mayor and Council, Delegate Solomon has proposed House Bill 100, which is a Sustainable Maryland Program Fund establishment. Councilmember Engel might be able to provide a little additional information on the Sustainable Maryland Program. Are you familiar with this, or?
Nate, go ahead.
You're muted.
You can't get off.
Nope.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
there you go. I couldn't unmute. Thank you. I think I reached my limit. Yeah, so this is you remember we were considering the Main Streets program back in October, November, and we had the presentation, and one of those was to get designated as a sustainable community. There was we came to the conclusion that we probably were already under those standards, which were quite minimal. And in researching that, we realized that there's actually another certification that is this sustainable community certification that's supported by the University of Maryland and MML. And it's more rigorous. It involves, a pretty more elaborate process. I would say much more robust way of ensuring that we're a sustainable community. And what this bill is going to do, I think, is more or less fund that program so that they could support other communities like ours in seeking technical assistance and support from the University of Maryland or whoever is running the program in partnership with the state to become a sustainable community. So it's not for us to pursue it, but just to support the legislation as it's being proposed in this session for funding the program. And ultimately down the road, working with them to, I would eventually advocate that we go this route, but that's not what we're to get designated as a sustainable community, but that's not what this letter is.
So in other words, the state is actually putting money behind, something that they have, they want people to do. They're actually going to provide, like, I guess, grant funding or something, or as you said, the technical support that you could get it without having to cough up more money for it, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Or continue to support it, because I think they've supported it in the past and it may have just
Okay.
run out.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know Jared's been working on that, and then we did send a Nate, what we did after 9 o'clock, my head starts to
Yeah,
get tired.
so
We
a gentleman named Mike Hunninghake, he, I think, was leading the effort to ask municipalities to sign on to the letter of support, and that's what we did.
Right. Yeah.
I asked him for an update, and he gave it to me today. He
Okay.
said that they had a successful House Appropriations Committee hearing in January, and then another successful Senate Economy, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee meeting last week. It's all been positive. Says, he thinks that it looks like it's in good shape, but I guess you never know, and I'll probably can attest to that. So they're just looking for, it doesn't hurt to have more support. So
okay, I think MML supports it as well. So
yeah, I think
supports the bill.
actually MML, if I remember correctly, I didn't get a chance to go back and look at my notes from previous meetings, but I think MML, I think they were part of the program. They were
Mhm.
helping to run it. But
Yeah,
I did not see MML
'cause
mentioned in
yeah.
the bill.
Right. Sustainable Maryland is always, at any of our conferences, they're always there. So I know the organization definitely supports the program. Okay. Okay. Do you know if Jarrett needs this letter also tomorrow, or we can reach out to Jarrett?
My understanding was the deadline already passed, but he asked for support either way that we could send it.
Okay. All right. Sort of like with Al, you can send it after the fact. Yeah, right.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So Nate, you want to make a motion, or?
Yeah, actually, I just had a question. Matt, maybe we could go back to Jared and ask if it's sufficient that we just signed on to that letter, or do they actually need a separate letter?
Okay, I can ask his staff in the morning. So.
Okay.
And then if they need a separate letter, can we make a proactive motion that we?
Yeah, let's just make a motion that if a letter is needed, that we will go ahead and do it. So if you want to make it that way.
I'll move to draft a letter in support of HB 0100 SB 0014 to support the Sustainable Maryland Program Fund if that letter is needed.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you very much. Matt, did you or Susan have anything else tonight? Are you good?
Just real quick, we are currently in the ADA and sidewalk improvements in and around Town Hall, Fawcett, Mitchell.
I hadn't noticed.
No, it's been a little loud and a little dirty and noisy in and around Town Hall last week. We were hoping that they might finish the concrete work this week. It's probably going to be early next week. And then the milling and paving will happen sometime in March. We need a little warmer temperatures, especially with the installation of the Flexi Pave, which they'll do over at St. Paul Park as well once we hit about 50 degrees and rising. So just so next week, and then milling paving probably in March. So.
Well, it's going to be great when it's done, but I have to admit, when I walked out of the building today and I had a profanity because I realized there was no sidewalk to take me to the street. So anyway, but when it's finished, it's going to be great. So, and all the little Brookwood girls get to go through the front door instead of the side door. At least hopefully it should be, it looks like they're going to pour concrete tomorrow. So maybe by Wednesday, they'll be able to.
Yeah, they're scheduled to pour tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it should cure and they'll be able to flip over to Armory on Thursday. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, that'll be nice when that's done. But as I said, it's going to look great when it's done. And this type of work is never convenient. So, but anyway. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Take shifts for handprint watch or dog print watch in the sidewalk.
They're pretty smart. They put it down in the morning when they're all there. The workers are there. So, the kids aren't going to do something when the workers are there. And then it cures pretty quickly. So I'm not sure, in the 6-7 hours that, they're still there, that they get to do that. So, but yeah, that is a concern.
Armory Avenue got tagged on the new sidewalk. So there's 2 young boys in the town that got their name in it.
There you go.
Well, they did do some on
Fawcett
Fawcett Street.
Very Irish.
Very Irish.
We're not
naming
naming names.
So
okay.
Yeah.
I did not recognize them. So.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to name names. You can go down and look at it yourself. So, all right. So let's move on to public appearances. If anyone has anything that's not on today's agenda that wants to say something, and I see Jack's hand up. So, Jack.
Thank you. 2 things. First, I'm pleased to see the road work for the bump out at the intersection of Fawcett and Howard Avenue. At the January council meeting, the Mobility and Traffic Committee also talked about installing 2 mirrors at 45 degrees so that one can see who is coming on Howard Avenue without having to stick your nose out. And there's a utility pole right next to the wall on the north side of Howard Avenue. It'd be the perfect place to put it, and I like to encourage the town to do it. You get a lot of benefit for a low cost for that.
Okay.
Okay. Second, there's not a whole lot happening astronomically this month. There'll be a full moon on Wednesday, the 16th.
Okay. Is it going to be clear?
Hold on. I got to ask a question because I thought for sure
That's
there would
above
be
my
comment
pay
about
grade.
this. Because I read, there was a report about, what was it, Amazon or whoever, they put up Elon Musk, dozens and dozens of satellites 2 years ago. And like half of them just got wiped out by, was it an asteroid storm that just occurred, Jack?
No, I think it was a magnetic storm. That's what comes after a solar flare. You get a big burst from the solar wind, which carries with it the magnetic field, which then interacts with the Earth's magnetic field if they are oppositely directed. And changing magnetic fields induce electric currents, which do bad things to satellites.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear about tonight. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm not seeing any hands. So we will move on to ordinance, resolutions, and regulations. Matt?
Mayor and Council, before you this evening is ordinance number O-03-2021, which is an ordinance of the Mayor and Town Council to amend Chapter 4, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 3, Traffic Control, Section 4-302, Speed Limits in the Town of Kensington to reduce the speed limit along town-maintained streets from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. The Council received 3 additional comments through 4 p.m. this past Friday. With regards to the proposed ordinance. The public hearing was held Monday, January 10th, 2022.
And just for the public record, I believe the comments we received, they were not wanting to lower the speed. Is that correct?
Correct. There were 2 that were opposed to lowering the speed, and the third was in favor. However, they had concerns about lowering the speed on Kensington Parkway. This is
Right.
Kensington Parkway south of Frederick Avenue.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. We are not taking any more additional public comments. We had the hearing last month, so we just need a motion to for the ordinance.
Honor, this one's you.
Technically, this one was Darren's, so I was going to defer to Darren.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number O-03-2021.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Matt, number 2.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The ordinance will take effect July 1st, 2022, which is the first day of the fiscal year. We have the sign. We need to purchase the signs, so it gives us a little time to transfer over.
How many signs total?
I don't have the total number for this one yet. I think it was like 15 or 16. We had our code enforcement officer Annie do a quick check around town, but our traffic engineer will do a formal count.
Okay.
Before you this evening is Charter Resolution number CR-01-2022. This is an introduction of Charter Resolution of the Mayor and Council of the Town of Kensington amending Article 4, Council, Section 403, Qualifications of Council Members, Article 5, the Mayor, Section 503, Qualifications of the Mayor, and Article 7, Registration, Nominations, and Elections, Section 701, Qualifications of Voters of the Town Charter to enable a non-citizen who is a lawful permanent resident who is authorized to work in the United States to be eligible to register to vote in Town of Kensington municipal elections. With the charter resolution, we sent out again our letter to the community explaining why the charter resolution is being introduced. And again, this is an introduction only, and we're requesting that the public hearing be scheduled for Monday, March 14th, 2022.
Okay, and that will be an opportunity for the public to speak to the charter resolution, and but people can also go ahead and send their comments in through mayor.council. So they do not need to wait for the hearing if they want to go ahead and send in their comments now. But we're not taking any comments tonight until the hearing. Okay, all right. Number 3.
Do we,
Mayor and council.
somebody need
go
to
ahead,
make a
Aaron.
motion to introduce it, or are we?
I don't think we make, do we make a motion to introduce it?
Yes, make
Okay,
a motion
sorry.
to introduce and set the public hearing for March 14th. And I'd like to
Okay.
also note that if the mayor and council decide that they will adopt this, they will need to adopt it at the March meeting in effort for these residents to be able to vote in our current election, just because we're required to wait 50 days. So just
Because
have a
otherwise it would be July 1.
correct, we would not have enough time to register the residents on a supplemental list to be eligible for our June 6th election unless we adopt it at the March 14th. So we would need to hold the public hearing on March 14th and adopt on March 14th. It has to be done during a regularly scheduled meeting. Otherwise, we don't meet the time requirements.
Okay, so the only
our-
thing that would be, we wouldn't be able to extend the time for comment.
Correct, yes.
Okay, we've certainly done that in the past on other issues. Okay. All right, does somebody want to make a motion for the introduction?
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number O-01-2022 and to set a public hearing for Monday, March 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, number 3.
Mayor and council, before you is ordinance number O-01-2022, which is an introduction ordinance and the corresponding ordinance to the charter resolution. Amending Chapter 2, Government and Administration, Article 2, Elections, Section 2-201, General Voter Registration to enable a non-citizen who is a lawful permanent resident or is authorized to work in the United States to be eligible to register to vote in Town of Kensington municipal elections. Staff is requesting that you set a motion to set the public hearing for Monday, March 14th, 2022.
Okay,
Isn't
again,
this
we're
what
taking,
Darren just moved?
I realized I just made a mistake with the previous motion.
Yeah, he said instead of CR.
I didn't realize that we have 2 different things to introduce, and I introduced already ordinance 01-2022, and we already adopted it. So we need to introduce CR-01-2022.
let's be very clean here. Let's just go ahead and just do the motions again, just to make sure that we have it. Okay, so let's make a motion. Charter, is there a, please make a motion on the charter resolution.
I will make a motion to introduce charter resolution number CR-01-2022.
Okay, is there a second?
For Monday, March 14th, at 7 p.m.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Bridget, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on number 3, the ordinance, we are not taking any comments tonight. We will take that at the hearing. That too can be, any comments can be made to mayor.council at any point. Darren, do you want to make a motion for the
I will
ordinance?
make a motion again to introduce ordinance number O-01-2022 and set a public hearing for March 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, thank you, Bridget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Matt, number 4.
Thank you. Resolution number R-01-2022 is a resolution of the mayor and town council authorizing the town manager to contract for the installation of a speed hump along the 10400 block of Kensington Parkway between Manakee Street and Oberon Street. The town received a petition from the 5 residents on this block This is the block of Kensington Parkway, which is north of Metropolitan Avenue, requesting the speed hump. Our traffic engineer conducted a traffic analysis, and the Mobility and Traffic Committee made the recommendation to move forward with the installation of the speed humps. We are asking for the council's support.
Okay. Is there any questions on this resolution? Okay. Are there any questions from the audience on the resolution? Okay, I don't see any hands. Okay. Can I get a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution R-01-2022.
Second.
Okay. Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Number
Mayor and
5.
Council. The speed hump will be installed when our contractor does the milling and paving in around Town Hall. So they'll incorporate the speed humps at that time.
Okay.
Resolution number R-02-2022 is a resolution of the mayor and town council authorizing the town manager to establish street parking along the 3500 block of Pliers Mill Road. This area is almost directly across from Springwell Lingle Montessori School. We were requested by them to review the existing no parking area between Pliers Mill Court and Lexington Street for additional parking. We had our traffic engineer, Joe Cutro, evaluate the area, and he determined that we could have 3 parking spaces in that area. We brought the request to the Mobility and Traffic Committee, in which they asked for feedback from the 2 adjacent neighbors. We reached out to both neighbors and heard back from one. They were in favor of allowing parking, street parking in that location. We are not currently asking for any restrictions. We're going to leave it open and reevaluate for any future restrictions of the area.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you say you did talk to some residents? Because I know that was a question that came up.
We reached out to the 2 adjacent residents. Alex reached out to them. We heard back from one. They were in favor of it. We did not hear back from the other resident.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is there any questions regarding this resolution?
Maybe I could add a little bit more, just a little bit of background, what we discussed in the committee meeting, because I think there were I raised some concerns about there were 2 issues that were flagged. One is that this may not actually address the problem that Spring Montessori has, because you couldn't designate these spots for them. They have to be public. So people could just park there. The residents right there could park there, presumably the whole time. And then we did nothing but just create 3 new parking spots, which some people might want. But I think it does create, back to the issue on the bicycling and pedestrian safety and access. There are a lot of bikes that use that, and it's basically taking away a safe route. If you're carving that out for parking, it limits the ability of them to kind of get over on that side. And I think there's some concern with crossing, because where those spots are to get over to the Montessori school and cross the street, you have to walk, a decent distance to the crosswalk and then over. So just there may be some issues around safety and crossing there from the parking spots if they're using them. I personally am not in favor of it, especially if we don't have the second resident who would be directly impacted by it with their input. So that's my view.
Okay. Council, any other comments?
I actually was for allowing it. I think, the worst case scenario, that resident has another opportunity to park, maybe if they have visitors or guests, and people are already going to be crossing that street just further back down, closer to St. Paul Park, I believe, where they are already. So I don't think there's an increase in any sort of nuisance or hazard. I think, it might be a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, but at least it's something.
Okay. Connor, Darren, any comments?
I would just say quickly that it's already striped off as what appears to be like lane narrowing or traffic calming. I believe that parked cars do provide some traffic calming. And so I would support allowing parking in those spaces.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm actually, Darren's comments are kind of mine. The comments I've heard actually more have been from residents of Pliers Mill Court that Pliers Mill is starting to become a bit of a drag strip from Georgia to Connecticut. And even with the raised crosswalk there, I think adding, the option for parking, which could bring cars, will, help to, reduce the lanes and may help for traffic calming.
Okay. Is there any comments from the audience? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion on number 5?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R-02-2022.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, I'm so sorry Joe Campbell's not here. He'd be so happy to see us not agreeing on something. Darn. Anyway, so his loss. Okay, number 6, final.
Thank you.
You can always watch the replay.
There you go. There you go.
Resolution number R-03-2022 is a resolution of the mayor and town council authorizing the town manager to establish 4-hour parking 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday along the 10500 block of St. Paul Street. I would like to clarify, typically this is something we would take to the traffic committee, although this has been something that we've discussed for a number of years once Modena by Solera opened. So I just brought it to the council directly. These are for the spaces on St. Paul between Metropolitan Avenue and the railroad tracks, so we can regulate them so they're not taken up by, basically to keep the parking open for the potential cafe and other visitors. So.
Yeah, right now they're being used for all-day parking by not commuters, but for employees. So they are meant to be visitor parking. So I know there was a request to do a 2-hour. I think we start at 4, which is what our usual is, and we'll see if that resolves the problem and there's enough turnover that people have that opportunity to use those spaces. But right now they're being used for, up to 8-9 hours a day for employees or possibly commuters, but I think mostly employees.
Just a quick question. So this, we just voted on something that we would give access to people to be able to park for business employees, basically parking using our street parking. But we want to take that option away with this. I'm just confused for.
Well, I think this is a different area. You're in retail. There's a retail establishments there, so they're meant to provide retail parking.
Yeah, okay, so the it's a section there right across or right next to
across from AU. Yeah, adjacent to the new 2 historic buildings.
Okay.
So it's brand new park.
Yeah, do we know what the residents' feedback was?
There are no residents there.
Along St. Paul?
So, no, there's
not on that side of Metropolitan.
This is a strictly commercial area.
This is,
you're familiar, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe I could just clarify and ask that the resolution be clarified. Because Connor, I think you're a 10500 block of St. Paul Street too.
Yeah.
I think it goes all
That's
the
why I
way
was
from Bow
confused.
up to Pliers Mill. And so I think we want to clarify the resolution to say that the 10500 block south of Metropolitan Avenue, because I don't want to be messing with the 2-hour spots at the park.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay.
This is definitely for the garage, the cafe garage across from AU Carpet.
Okay, that
So
makes
with that-
more sense.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the residential,
Okay.
parking areas.
this clarifies. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. So what is the amended?
If we just add south of Metropolitan Avenue after 10500 block of
Okay.
St. Paul Street.
All right, we got it. Cool.
Okay. Is there any other questions from the council?
This is one of those, I don't know if I'm introducing new things, right?
All right.
One, I support it. I walk past there numerous times a day, and it is incredibly overcrowded, but also the need to turn over, guests, people shopping, farmers market, visitors to Salerno, to Modena. I think signing it makes total sense. I also think that particular block of St. Paul has some real problems with pedestrian safety. Unfortunately, the design of Ayoub's building, where their garage is, and where the crosswalks were put in when that section was improved, they park in the middle of there's a sidewalk and two sidewalk aprons that go across their driveway, but they park there every day, all day and all night, rendering the two ADA aprons unusable. They also park along the south side of their building within the parking lot area, and it creates a huge sightline problem, again, on the sidewalk, but also for cars trying to enter into the parking lot, because you can enter and exit at that point. We don't have one-way traffic, right, going through the parking lot. You can actually exit out that way, and I've seen more near misses than I want to tell you, because you're coming around a van and nobody sees you. They have no idea that you're there. So I realize maybe this is introducing a new topic in there, but I do think we need to address either enforcement and signage, or what are allowable parking and striping, because it's not safe. And now that we're introducing more vehicles, right? We've improved the structure. These parking spaces, which are for pull-in spots, those cars are now going to be, backing out or pulling out of those spots, creating a more activated but confusing area. And right now, pedestrians have to walk in the street to go around Ayoub's vans. And I think it's just creating a danger zone. So long way of saying, yes, I'm in support of signing it and restricting it and enforcing it. But the other side, the east side of St. Paul, where Ayoub is, needs to be addressed as well.
Okay, well, we can't address that tonight.
Right.
In the sense we'll need to have maybe Joe can look at that area and see what kind of improvements we can make. It's very difficult when you have these driveway aprons as also as a sidewalk. I know that's a tricky thing, but they shouldn't be doing things, in our parking lot behind their building. So although I believe they have a couple of spaces that are theirs, is that actually on their property, Matt?
I think they have a couple spaces that are on their property. We signed an agreement with them that they could use our lot to meet their requirements with the county zoning. For some reason, I know there's one space that they have that might be where the dumpster is now.
Okay.
But I know there's some issues over there. I'll have Joe Kutro go over there and see if he can make any recommendations for us.
Yeah.
And we'll probably need to include the state too, because it's actually their return and intersection.
Okay. But I don't think Connor's concerns really have much to do or anything to do with this particular resolution.
No,
Do you-
the opportunity to talk about that block.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and move forward with the resolution if everyone's in agreement to the 7 to 5 Monday through Friday 4-hour parking. And then we'll look at addressing the other issues, because I have been over there and seen that and experienced it. And so it was one of those things during construction, you just kind of let it slide. But I think now that it's done, we need to address it.
Mhm.
So could I get a motion? Oh, is there anybody else?
You're on mute, Tracy.
I'm sorry, and I don't see any hands from the audience, so if we can get a motion.
I move that we pass resolution number R-03-2022 establishing 4-hour parking along the 10500 block of St. Paul Street, south of Metropolitan Avenue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Oh, gosh, was that the last thing on our agenda? And it's not even 10 o'clock. Wow, how time flies. All right, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
And have a good
Hi,
evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Have a good week.
bye-bye.